Welcome to the International Schools Podcast. I'm your co host, John Mickton. Dan is away traveling. And, we talk about all kinds of different experiences. And I know that Dan and I, when we started this podcast, well, Dan started it and then I joined him. A lot of the focus was on digital technologies, digital ecosystems, digital environments. And they're so pervasive in our world. We pretty much can't live without digital devices, I think, nowadays. And there is some quote, and I don't know, I hopefully it's fact and not use a fake news, but that I think we look at our phones over 60, 70 times a day, often unconsciously. If you think of the work that I'm doing with senior citizens, a lot of them are struggling because everything now is online and they don't come from a context where that was it. And they are often a little uncomfortable with the issues of trust and how do you trust something online. There's just so much complexity and so much depth to this topic. And I think one thing we often talk about, oh, I'm going to disconnect or I turn off my notifications. And there are a variety of different strategies that we try to have. But we know if you go to a restaurant or go to the train, most often you'll see couples both on their phone, a family with a bunch of kids. The kids are all going to have iPads. Many of you in schools very likely see this when parents come and pick up their kids in a car. They're going to give them a device. It's become kind of the default go-to pacifier. And I think with COVID, we definitely understood how much we depended on it. And in many ways, a lot of tech companies took advantage of that COVID connection and made us even more addicted. And I know a lot of people might debate what I'm saying, but I really believe COVID was an instrumental part where suddenly we were doing so much more. People were working remotely. They were no more going to the offices. There were more expectations. And nowadays we do much more remotely. Professional development, people are much more comfortable doing it online. We work online. The online world has kind of become part of our metabolism. It's part of our physiology. And this can have all kinds of consequences, both positive and negative. And I think we always need to remember you need to have a balanced approach. You need to see what is the value added proposition and maybe what is the challenge that we have to mitigate or engage with. And I know there's been books, John Haidt's book about the anxious generation, about teenagers and different age groups and different people and different parts of your life. You're dealing with these addictions of the digital devices very differently, and you have different capacities. Anyway, over a few weeks ago, I saw a post by a very good friend, and many of you know him, Carlos Davidovich, and he had talked about being disconnected and going for a long walk over a week. And really, in his post, explained how it was quite impactful in his own reflections of the way he uses. And I thought, there's no better person to bring in and have this conversation as we're all running a mile a minute and making sure our notifications, our email, or whatever it is, our lessons. With AI, we're now even more involved. You have chatbots, you have your Siri, you have your Amazon Echo, your television. It's just everywhere. And I reached out to Carlos and said, listen, we need to talk about this. And of course, what did he say? Yes. So Carlos Davidovich is an executive coach in neuromanagement. He's a speaker. He's author of Five Brain Leadership. He's done a lot of work in international schools and with organizations, both nonprofit and profit, and commutes and works online. And he's done a lot of fantastic reflections and thinking and supporting all kinds of organizations with his wonderful approach towards neuromanagement and human beings trying to find that balance. So, Carlos, a warm welcome to International Schools Podcast.
John, thanks a lot for your invitation. I always love to be with you here. I mean, we are all friends. And I love your questions, your challenge, always something that makes me think a lot. And that's why I love to be here, definitely. Thanks.
So, Carlos, talk to us. So you're a person that works online. You're often online. I know you because of your book. You've been doing some social media on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Talk a bit about how much is the digital world part of your day-to-day work life?
A lot. I mean, and I tell you, I'm totally pro technology. So you already know that. I'm a fanatic of that, even though I'm not the young generation, let's say, at least outside from outside. I'm these guys in a baby boomer custom, but definitely, I mean, I think that it's amazing, and we already talked last time. I mean, we still don't know what is coming, and what's coming in the brain with all this stuff. And I'm very confident when I read all this negativity about that. I try to be aware and I say, hey, watch out, because this is something that never happened before. So we need to be attentive about all these changes. So a brief answer to you is to say yes. I do it. I use it all day long. I work online, and I need to use all these new equipments and things, and I'm totally into that. No problem at all.
So one thing is you decided to go for a walk
Yep.
and you spent a whole week and you were completely disconnected because the walk that you were doing, there's no signal. Talk a
Right.
bit about why you decided to do a walk on your own. Was there something that happened, or was it just more, oh, I'm going to go for a walk? And start talking about the transition as you start noticing your disconnection. What were you noticing about your own being?
It's a great question. First of all, I did it with my wife. We were the two of us, not in group, just by ourselves. And for many, many years, we were thinking about a Camino that is very popular in Europe or worldwide. But I mean, we are not. I need to say, we are not religious specifically. We call ourselves spiritual, that's for sure. And in one moment was the right time, right moment, and we decided finally to go there. And there is a lot of preparation. There is tons of fears. If you will be able, I will be able to walk, 20, 25 kilometers per day, just walking. I've never done it in my life. I mean, I did a lot of things physically, but not that one. And so there is a lot of things that are in front of you that will definitely in the new adventure. And the story started funny because before leaving to El Camino, I decided for the first time in my life to put the email that says I'm out. This is that everybody does it all the time, and I never done it because I always like to be connected. I love to be connected. And that day, I remember I called my daughter-in-law. I say, "Listen, I never done this before." She was laughing at me. I said, "What?" See, I want just to put the email that I'm out. And she was really laughing. And I said, okay, let's see what happened with this. So I will wait for your next question, but the decision was based in to I would call it exploration. I didn't know what was coming. I knew I read about Coelho's books. I read this like a movie about the Camino, and tons of people went there. But we decided again, right time, right moment to decide to go, and I decided to be committed to the Camino. And to be committed was to be there, to be fully there and to be very mindful to be there. And one of the conditions was to be disconnected.
So when you decided to be present in the moment and disconnected, what so here you start your first day
Yeah.
and you're disconnected. How did this disconnectivity kind of transition? What were there some of the things that were going through your head or physiologically, emotionally? What were you noticing?
First of all, something that I think that we need to keep in mind. It's hard to change a habit or a habit, daily habit, without another big motivation or purpose why to do it. So what I knew is I didn't do the whole month or month and a half that takes the whole way, the whole Camino. So I knew there was only 1 week, and at the same time was the whole week. So and I was talking to myself, and I was totally convinced if I'm not there fully myself there, this is not going to work. I was not waiting for any miracle, but I was waiting for the opportunity finally to really, really, really have an inner and nice conversation with me. Again, we did with my wife, we were in silence most of the time. And the experience itself, and for me, was one of the, well, many, 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 many takes away from the experience. But we were doing a physical activity, right? I mean, quite demanding because you go up, you go down, I mean, you just walk. And that, of course, catch your attention. I mean, you need to be there and you need to pay attention to every single part of your body. And then you start discovering that you have more muscles than you thought, or some joints were there that you never thought about it. and now they are yelling, "What are you doing with me?" So, so what I'm trying to say is there was an intention very clear to be focused on me and me regarding my body, how it's going to respond. I really wanted to do it. I thought in some moment at the beginning, maybe I cannot make it or we cannot make it, and it's fine. But of course, part of me say no way. There's no way back, and there's no way not to finish this. And then, let me use that word, John. Then the magic appeared. I mean, I never thought it was so well organized, amazingly organized. There's no way to get lost. The signs are everywhere. And you get into really, I felt, to get into the flow state every day. Not all the way, because some moment at the end was very hot, and after 6-7 hours of walking, you just need to focus on how to reach the end of that day. But I found out that when the environment helps so much and you have the right attitude, of course, internal attitude, this state of flow can come. I don't like to say easily, but in a comfortable way. Make sense?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that helps a lot. I mean, of course, we were walking and we were not suffering, but we were really demanding to our body a lot of effort and exercise. But there is a flow state that I realized at the end of the first day. I say, what is that? Because normally that state comes in different circumstances. And this kind of and the word flowing, I think, is never better said, because in some moments like you're floating, even though you're walking. Okay, don't get me wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
but the environment has a very special energy. Let me use that word as well. That is like you get into a tunnel. Meanwhile, you're walking. That has in some ways protecting people that walks. I don't know. Please tell me if the concepts are not correct, but I need to
No, no,
tell you.
no. I'm trying, absolutely. So, I think one thing what I like is this flow state.
Yeah,
When I hear that, I hear something that has no resistance, that's kind of naturally going. It's not asking questions, it's not
exactly.
resisting, it's not reflecting. It's kind of you're in the moment and you're flowing in that
Yeah.
moment.
And it's not something they look for. That it happened. Okay, it's the right attitude. Of course, I understand that we were really eager to do it, but and don't get me wrong. I mean, the body also. I don't want to use the word suffer, but it's in demand, a very demanding exercise for somebody that is not doing that. You are cycling all day. I know you, John, so it's no problem for you, but
Oh,
for
thanks.
me. But I tell you that even though I thought I was going to be talking or whatever, no, didn't happen. You need to be in silence.
Well, can
And
I ask you, Carlos? So
please,
you and
please,
your wife, did you find, because this flow state really fascinates me, did you both go into flow states at different
yeah,
time? You're not talking, not because you're angry, but you're both kind of committed to the moment. And did
exactly.
you notice coming in at different times into the flow state?
I cannot. I don't recall exactly that, but both of us we went through that state for sure. I cannot tell you of the same time or different time. I cannot tell you that. But definitely, I thought that I'm more talkative than my wife many times, but this time there was no way. There was not a need. Again, the motivation to do this, and then let's not call it motivation. The purpose. What was a purpose in behind that? The purpose to do it. The purpose be able to do it at my age and my state out of the blue. I mean, it's not something I do every year at all. And it's interesting because you walk in some moments. There was a high season, right? So in some moment there were so many people walking around you. It's like you are downtown Madrid or downtown whatever. And in some moment you are in the forest by yourself. So those situations, but at the same time it doesn't matter that other people were there because everyone is somehow on the same vibe, you know. I mean, there is I'm sure you know, there is a saying that everyone that goes in the Camino always say that people tell, it's a wish to each other. It says buen camino. Buen camino means, I mean, the wish that you will do a nice walk, you know, a
Yeah,
nice. Buen camino is like is the mark of el camino. Yeah, and everybody, and you see people from all over the world, you know, saying that when they go back you and
yeah.
walking and so buen camino. So everything is around this. That it's like there was no room for technology at that moment.
When you say there was no room, in the sense like because you could have a phone with Google Maps, you could
Yeah.
have you could be counting your steps, but that was a conscious decision on your part to say, I'm not going to have this as part of the exercise.
No, I need to confess, I did the counting pay steps, but I was not controlling that until at the night. I mean, I was looking at the night only, so just to check it because for me it was surprising. I mean, about that, so many kilometers, how many steps there were, but that is not to be connected to the network. It's got to be connected with some information. Let's say that was, let's say, by the way, uh, how can I say it? Uh, I think it's based on how you determine yourself to be in that place in that moment. But the time was limited; it was 1 week, and there were so many intense and good feelings that we were not in a need to be connected. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And are these things, these kind of flow state and these feelings of intent and feeling good, have you experience those in your day-to-day work life, or do you find that you're not in a flow? I'm wondering, people say I'm in a work flow and
Yeah.
they're multitasking and doing things like that. But do you think that technology by default doesn't allow you to be present in the moment?
No, I don't. I don't agree with that. Depends what you're doing. So depends who is in control. That is the point. Am I in control of technology or technology is in control of me? Give you an example that's quite common today, you know, the TikTok that you just go doon, 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 doon. And in some, I mean, you're not controlling. TikTok is controlling you. And with all respect, okay, so I give you as an example. So if I feeling addicted, let's say to check my emails or to check my WhatsApp, then I'm not in control. That's a different story. So I can be in the flow working, yes, not every time. This was a different kind of flow. Maybe it's the same state, but was induced for a different environment. And you know that there are a lot of articles or research about the power of nature around us.
Yes.
They finally, and the Japanese things I wrote in the post. I mean, I read about that. But and always we think about it, but that was a concrete experience that is happening. I mean, we were surrounded by nature and we feel embraced by nature. We were lucky; it didn't rain. Okay, that's good. That was
Well,
good.
you could be embraced by rain, which is still
Yeah,
nature. Yeah,
but,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
not comfortable. That was nice
yeah,
weather, but it's to
absolutely.
be embraced. I don't know, but the magic is full of trees and crowds. I mean, a lot of things, corn and vineyards because that's the area for that. But even though you walk with respect because you're getting into their territory, so this kind of feeling of presence and whatever was around was alive. It's kind of metaphorically, they are not. I don't know if you know, you don't have to know, but in the concept, in the cosmology of shamanism, there is a saying that always for me was, I was very curious. They say, whatever has a shadow, projects a shadow in our world is alive. That's what they believe.
Oh, nice.
Exactly. Whatever projects a shadow is alive. That's why they respect so much everything in nature. And in this, we were thinking, we were talking with Irene about this because in some moment it's like you're not surrounded by trees, you're surrounded by beings that in this that has that shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much in the
No,
air,
no,
but
no, but no, but I think that's really important what you're bringing up because I think sometimes, especially with technology, which is hardware, metals, and silicon, and all those things, there is no shadow. And I think that's such an important metaphor is if you stop to notice the shadow, well, then you're seeing something. And the fact is that we know, and you know, most things around us, be it trees, bushes, or rivers, they're all living beings. And you know, as you said, you know, many cultures and communities have that philosophy
yeah.
about the being around you and embracing it. When you were kind of getting in the flow, did you ever, like, you know, usually when people fall sick or even if they have a burnout or they need time off, they're always worried about, well, if I don't get that done, if I take time off, then I'm going to have to catch up when I come back. It's that treadmill kind of feeling. Did you have some of that? Like you very likely had a whole bunch of projects. You were very likely mid work. How did you just say, sorry, cutting it out?
That is a great question because I am the guy who's always saying the missing of foreignality. I mean that I'm missing something. You know, I mean I need to be connected. If not, I'm missing something. That week, I didn't have that need. So somehow I felt maybe I conditioned in my mind to feel that everything was okay. There was, I mean, there was not an emergency. I mean, the work I do is not an emergency work, so I'm not the first responder on anything. So what I'm trying to say is, and now the work come to my mind is a different perspective. So you change the perspective, and it's amazing how powerful, in a good sense, you feel when you can change the perspective in a good way. And again, I use the word to be in control, not to be a control freak. I mean, not to depend in technology or whatever is surrounding, is to make my own decisions about myself and to be fully accountable of that.
So would you say, based on this experience, and you had the flow, you were very present in the moment, and just lovely anecdotes about how the surroundings became very much alive, and you
Yeah,
were in the moment with that. When you have gone back, because you work with organizations, school
yeah,
leaders, nonprofits, and you're often going in because there are organizational development issues, breakdown in trust, things aren't working, there's conflict. Have you, are you looking at this differently now?
great question. The answer is yes. I cannot give you too many details, but the answer is yes. So, can I say, yeah, I can say that somehow, and I hope it will last because you never know, it was kind of a transformative experience. And I tell you, I'm not a boy, I'm not young. I mean, I had many good experiences in my life, but this one, maybe because it was the right time. And, and, uh, and it's like to change or to add different components of your lens, and then you can listen differently, you can see differently. It's quite subtle, you know. I mean, it's not there are no nuances there. I mean, it's not something wow. I mean, no, nothing spectacular or I mean happen. It's a simple, it's a simple flow. It's a simple dance. You know, it's like you start dancing different music. Again, it's not something spectacular that happens
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. But it's
or
maybe it
having visions or having, you know, and see something that was, no. It's,
solved humanity's problems on the walk. No. But you know, but I think the word that you bring up is simplicity, and it's
totally.
nothing big. And that may be the mundaneness, the simplicity. I think that so often we hear people say, my life's too complicated. I've got too many accounts. I've got too much stuff going on.
Yeah,
I'm constantly being interrupted. I'm hearing that this moment of simplicity where there's really not much else to do but walk.
exactly. That's the point. I mean, and because you are busy and you need to focus and you need to take care of your body, and that's enough. Yeah, I think it's. I don't want to maybe to fall in any cliche, but it's true. It's completely true.
So why is it that one has to go for a walk for 100, 25 kilometers? When the work that you do, and you've done some amazing work, and you've got a great book, Five Brains Leadership, about neuromanagement and the brain, and you're a doctor, and you've done a lot of work in that field. Why do we have such great difficulty in our day-to-day life, and why do we have to have such intrinsic intent and purpose to say, okay, I'm disciplining myself, I'm jumping off the boat?
Yeah, yeah, it's right. I don't think I have the answer to your question, John, to be honest, because nothing. Most of us, we don't have a limitation to do it. We just don't plan to do it. Or we are okay with the life we have. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's nothing wrong. I mean, with the life we have. This was different. It was like introducing such a differences in our daily life that really, really was impactful. So, if you ask the question, do you recommend this to everyone? Maybe yes, but it's up to you in the end. What I will say is be confident because we bring you more. So for us, really exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when I post in LinkedIn this experience and that you read, it has more than 10,000 views, and but many of them, or several of them, were is in my bucket list. I know about that. So many people that say, wow, now I see that you're doing it. Hey, maybe I can bring it back to my life. So what I'm trying to say is so many times we really need somebody that we know, we trust, because people, all of them, they know me somehow, we know each other, to awake ourselves of something that we already knew. So it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, I think nobody that's listening today doesn't agree with us that taking time off from a device is good. There.
definitely it's a good experience, even though let's put it this way, to in a good sense, to prove to yourself that you can do it. That is more than enough.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, and I always say when I discuss with my kids, whatever, with people in general, and about the technology is a big issue everywhere. And I give a lot of talks, as you know, and many times they comment exactly what you said at the beginning. No, but kids today are on the phone all day and they don't talk to each other, or whatever. And without getting there, I say, no, wait, let's not kill the messenger. So let's not kill the tool. The tool is not the guilty one. The tool is, I mean, is something that we use. So let's be mindful how we use it, when we use it, what kind of limits we put to that, and then everything will be okay. So what I'm
and
trying to, sorry, go ahead.
no, and I think that's really interesting that you bring up the fact that it's a tool and that at some point we do have control. Fair enough, companies are targeting personalizations. We talked about TikTok. We get that. But at the end of the day, as an adult, and I think we're talking about adults because I think with adolescents and younger kids, it's
Different.
very different. And maybe we can talk about that in a few minutes. But I do agree with you, it's a tool, but we still somehow as adults struggle with it. Is it because
No,
we've lost the capacity to actually discipline ourselves?
it's about discipline or it's about motivation.
Ah,
It's two different things. When I coach many people, no, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. I say, wait. My question is, what motivates you to do it? So in a good sense, what is a carrot that will take you there? And then you find out that it's not about I can, I cannot, because I don't want, because still is not motivated enough that I can shift and do it. Makes sense what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to
Absolutely.
say, and the same with adolescents and kids, it's about what is the level of motivations that we can provide to them, or present in front of them that will say, I want to do it. And in the end, I mean, it's funny. It's funny. Okay, what comes to my mind is so many times people say, no, I'm not going to spend money on whatever, and you find out that these people are spending money in really less valuable things. But just because it's what motivates them, what they are interested in. So it's not about the money, it's about the interest they have to do X, Y, or Z. The money is an excuse. Makes, I don't know if it has, I mean,
I do agree with you, and I think that it's interesting that when I said disciplined, you then said no motivation. What is
exactly.
the intrinsic motivation, and why are you doing that? But don't you think that collectively, then, so if we imagine we're in an office and emails are coming and the boss has an expectation, you might be motivated to be a balanced, but there's sometimes outside forces that prevent you. Is it about then having a collective agreement?
I don't know if it's a collective agreement, but definitely it's a collective way of living. I mean, we also many, and this happened in adolescent. Many behaviors are not great or healthy is because they don't want to be out of the gang. I mean, they want to belong. It's a belonging issue. But
Yeah.
again, the motivation is not doing X, Y, and Z that maybe are not correct. It's about belonging. The motivation is I'm being part of this team or this group, this gang, whatever, or the tribe. So again, we need to learn to read between the line what is behind, and then will help us a lot. It's not about arguing about emails or apps, so it's not about that. Tell me about your life, and then we will find out together why you don't do X, Y, and Z, or why you are the whole day doing this or that. So I mean, there was an Argentinian singer that he very nice in the way the words, and he said, "You're not depressed, you're bored." So don't tell me don't name it as a depression. It's boredom.
Interesting. And I think sometimes that's I actually digging between the lines, as you said, reading between the lines is really important. And imagine when you're working with organizations and school leaders in international schools and around the world, are you often trying to percolate up the reading between the lines because we don't take the time to read between them?
Yeah, I mean, we are not used to. It's a learning process. But I remember our experience in Prague because that's the way we met. And talking about professors, students, teachers, and in the end, is to identify what the motivations are, why they do what they do, and then we can maybe define better how to, let's say, nudge them to do things that will be healthier or will be better or will be more productive, whatever you want to call it. But again, let's stop blaming the tool. I mean, it's not about the tool, because if I see another lesson, whatever, using all these devices to create image or to create things, wow, fantastic. So this is just using the tool for creativity or using the tool to whatever, or to produce something that will be useful. Well, it's full of nice. It's about beauty many times.
But I
Makes it
think your point's an important one is that if we're just consumers of this technology, so we're just consuming consumption, like, we're consuming, we're not being creative, we're not thinking critically. But if we can flip that around and use the tool for creativity and creating content, then it becomes a different intrinsic, it becomes a different kind of experience.
exactly because can we say that exists the addiction to technology? The answer is yes, but it's the same trigger or pattern in the brain that any kind of addiction. So the addiction to any kind of substance or alcohol or whatever. So it's a different story. It's what happened inside of the person, not what happened outside.
Yeah, and I
And
think that's interesting that you say that is the trigger of this addiction. It's technology. These triggers have been there before technology was there.
absolutely, they call it differently, but of course, you can say, you already said it, that the triggers can be more sophisticated, right? And based, and it's true. I mean, I teach neuromarketing, and I don't teach marketing, I teach neuromarketing. That is, what are the real triggers that organization wants to sell their products,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's fascinating because they use basic human emotions or basic human fears or basic, what I mean, what I'm trying to, one of the chapter about the thing I teach is about products connected with different brains, with different narratives of the brain. And it's so easy to see it, what they are looking for to be able to sell their products. But again, the basic pattern is the same. Can be more sophisticated, less sophisticated, but in the end it's the same. Are triggers that can awake certain part of the brain.
And
That
if we take your case of the neuromarketing, it's basically how well do you understand the human triggers and how can you leverage that for the goal or objective that you might have?
exactly. It does, for instance, it's not the topic of today, but it doesn't exist. Zero irrational buying decision. It doesn't. It's impossible. The brain cannot do it.
Yeah.
Needs some kind of emotion behind. So then if I know myself and can understand myself, and again, in a positive way, I can be in control, I, in the end, decides to buy whatever I want to buy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can say, yeah, it produces certain emotions in me that I want to have it. Okay, fine. What is the problem? Again, it's got this gray area, John, or this or thin line, whatever you want to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, no, the thin line's a great one. Carlos, I'm going to stop us just for 56. What is this? 36:56. I'll be right back. Yeah. Hold on a second.
Please,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. So Carlos, you talk about this thin line and this gray area. Tell me, we're really talking about adults being in the moment, correct? And being present.
Hmm. Yeah.
What is the challenge that maybe adolescents, because there's been a lot of talk as educators where many teachers are noticing there's this label now, the COVID, babies, kids that spent their first 2 years in COVID, a lot of online at home,
Right.
isolated. And what is it about children and adolescents that this technology makes it that much more challenging than, say, for an adult? Is it because you have strategies, or I'm just curious what your thought is on that?
Again, the first things come to my mind is they were born in that generation with that. We didn't. That makes a huge difference. For you can see a 2 years old kid or less or younger playing, touching the screen already. I mean, so they were born. This is a generation of technology. It's part of their DNA already. I don't know
Yeah.
how.
No, no, absolutely. It's seamless.
It's seamless. Then how can I compare with me or with somebody that didn't didn't go through that experience? Again, and we talked last time, I want to be respectful of what's coming. I want to be, I'm not saying everything is okay, everything is good, everything, but I don't know. Well, we don't know. But civilization never knew if the changes were for good, for bad, or whatever. But
Yeah.
again, in the end, the balance was evolution, and that's, thanks God we are here and not in the cave, not still in the cave. So don't get me, come on, let's be mindful of that as well. And today, I told you, and I will repeat it 100 times, the best time ever on earth regarding all the parameters of health and education, whatever. This is the best time ever. If that means it's perfect, no, far away from that. But again, let's let's try to see the big picture, because if we focus on one thing, then we have a problem. Again, these kids, they were born in this. So for them, it's their life, but they don't understand differently. So how can you talk to someone like this unless you offer something that always is needed? That's the human warmth, I mean, the kindness, the be together. So the positive emotional side, and the rest we need to start asking them, not telling them.
And that's a really interesting point, because I know some people working with kids on screen time and addiction are really going to the kids and asking them to express themselves.
Exactly.
And, it's interesting. I was doing a lesson on cyberbullying with a group of 10 and 11-year-olds, and I started the lesson with, how many of you have been mean to somebody else? They all raised their hand.
Of course, I look at it.
And then they start talking about, I was mean at my mom, I was mean at my sister, I was not nice to my nanny. And then I said, okay, how many of you have been mean here at school? And they were all like looking at each other to see who was going to raise the hand first. And some very brave individual did. And then all the hands came up.
Of course.
And, I think sometimes if we don't engage and listen, as you're saying, and I like the way you said that are these children that we work with, that we're surrounded with, have a different point of reference. They have a different context. And if we're
Totally.
using our context to judge them, often there's this disconnect.
Absolutely. But please, to be mean was not induced by technology.
Yeah. And Dana Boyd, who wrote a wonderful book about social networks, says, it just amplifies the behavior that the kids have.
Exactly. Yeah, or the power because they can reach more people farther, whatever. But this is about human behavior.
Yeah.
So let's work on how we raise our kids, but no, it's not about technology.
And I like throughout this whole conversation, you keep reminding us that, hold off on pointing at the tool as the blame, and let's start doing some introspection. And that's something I know you do a lot of work in this area, in getting organizations and leaders and individuals to start self-reflecting about what is their role, what are you bringing to the table. And I
Exactly.
think what is interesting about your walk is that you suddenly had an opportunity to kind of get into the flow and start talking to yourself and saying, okay, let's take stock of who I am, what I believe in. But, somehow we need to have that disconnect now to be able to do it. Can you do it still being connected?
It's different.
Okay.
It's different. But I will say that you can reach a different level or different step where you can bring in those memories. I mean, you can leverage better your daily life today. So and definitely, I mean, I have moments during the day now that I don't need to. I don't. It's not I don't want. I don't need to be connected. So like you start finding out more about yourself, and you say I don't need to be connected all the time. But I mean, my work is being connected.
Yeah. And so
It's true.
do you, are you intentionally saying, okay, now I'm not going to be connected for 2 hours?
Yeah, it comes naturally. I don't need to say that. It comes naturally. And I go for a walk, or I walk my dog, or whatever. I mean, if I walk my dog, I will never be with the phone, for instance.
Yeah.
I take that and I try the best I can to be just again mindful there. Gosh, I
It's
mean, so many things. It's a nice area and a lot of green people around. Gosh, that's the richness of that. But to do it at your pace and to do it at your inner rhythm. This is important, to be respectful of each of us. We are not the same. We know we are very similar, of course, but we don't use the same tools at the same time
Yeah,
internally.
yeah. Uh, Carlos, with the work that you do, how much is often people will blame the technology and you remind them it's the tool?
Many, many, many times, and many. There is a natural tendency to blame others, whatever situation is.
Yeah.
We need to find the guilty one. But so that's a general thing. And with technology, it's easy because technology will not respond, will not reply. But and I always when I hear people complaining too much or playing victim, that is similar, I always try to shift them to themselves. Okay, what that means? Why you are the poor person? Why you are? I said, tell me about you. I mean, because in the end, we are accountable for our life. The real concept of victims, the few people are in really in victims, but the social victim situation is a completely different story. And even though you can see people in whatever situation like that, they will keep fighting and they will keep looking for a way out. That's what we need to push.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Carlos, how are you going to go back? Do you feel this is
I don't
something
know.
you want to do again, or you're just not even thinking about it?
No, we were thinking about that with my wife, but I cannot tell you now. I mean, or to do something similar, maybe in other place,
Yeah.
no camino. But
Why did you then get so many reactions on your posts? You post a lot, and I'm not, and this is not saying what you post is not interesting, but 10,000 views must be one of the higher reactions you got. What is it that resonated with your network so much that, like, you've brought out books, you're a TEDx speaker, you do a lot of
yeah,
work. What was it? Does it just resonate? Like everybody wishes that?
it's the human side, the human aspect of what I commented. So it came from my heart, and people love to hear the human side of people. So it's true. And I will tell you something. This is my second largest post regarding views. The first one that had 20,000, and I tell you because it's funny. It was when I launched my book, and then I was recommended to take a photo of me, the book, and my dog in the photo. I'm convinced that the 20,000 was about my dog, not about the book, not about me.
It's interesting, yeah, how and there's it's interesting when you post what if just as an individual and you post on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, how people react to certain things and not and what is a but I just think it's so nice that your post was very human. It was very much from the heart, and
Yeah,
there was this great picture of you standing there. I think that just resonates for people. I think we all
yeah.
want some respite sometimes.
And there is one more thing you brought to my mind. Because all of us, we are regular people, let's say, I mean, normal people, regular people. When I see that somebody I consider is people like me, whatever the experience that person will have, I will feel it closer to me. I can do it. This concept of if Carlos done it, I can do it. In a good sense, I mean, okay?
Yeah,
Because
because there may be, and I don't know, is it because when we have close or connections, another person that's, as you use the label, normal, there is more capacity to think, well, I'm normal too, so that's within my reach.
so if Carlos done it in such a natural way, I can do it as well, and it's totally true. So and this is fantastic. Not to put yourself in a different place is somebody that I know. I mean, went through that experience. That brings the experience closer to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Carlos, again, a wonderful conversation, and I like the way we kind of meandered through a lot of different topics, but the idea of the self. And I remember, I like this quote, and I'm going to repeat it again. If something has a shadow, it's a living thing, and I think that's
Yes.
so important when we think, with AI and machines becoming more synthetic, as they call it. The synthetic world becomes more part of our day-to-day life. It's important to remind ourselves of those shadows and taking the time to
Yeah.
look at them. If we always ask our guests at the end, we have educators from around the world and school leaders and people involved in international education. If you have some piece of wisdom or just something to leave people with as they think about what they heard through your experience, just something about that flow and having that downtime.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is you can be all these people that you're talking about. You can be an expert, a super expert on something. human nature and the brain works in this way. If you are super expert on something, you already have blind spots. So try to listen more. Try to find out if something is missing in the equation. So when we are in that extreme, the other one also pops up. And maybe look your way to stop. It's not one, there are many ways to stop and listen. First of all, to yourself. And if it's too noisy, the inner narrative, maybe to somebody else.
Thank
But
you.
be mindful of that.
Carlos, thank you so much. I want to remind our audience in the show notes, Carlos has shared a link to his book, Five Brain Leadership. You can also see him at carlosdavidovich.com and definitely spend some time on his website. And Carlos does some wonderful work with organizations. Carlos, thank you so much for this conversation. And
Well,
I really appreciate your post. It really kind of Dan and I were like, oh, we need to talk to Carlos. This is such a great idea. And the idea of flow and being present and the shadows. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you shared today.
thanks to you, John, for inviting me to come here. A
Thank you
pleasure.
to our audience, and we look forward to see you at our next episode. Again, if you like what we're doing, please do like or share a comment on your favorite podcast ecosystem. Thank you very much.